We're all packed up, just about ready to hit the trail. We're getting to Harper's Ferry today, although we're going to camp just short of Harper's Ferry, I don't know, a few miles short. And then tomorrow night and the next night we have a hotel in Harper's Ferry to become civilized before we do the last push on to Washington, D.C. It's supposed to rain later tonight, probably after we're in camp and hopefully after we're in our tent. It's unfortunate that we'll get our tents wet one night before we're going to be in a hotel where we wouldn't be getting wet, but that's just the way it seems like it's going to be. We'll see if the rain really comes. But it's a humid morning in the 70s. Feels very sticky. We're not used to the humidity back here, being from out west, but it'll be a pleasant ride. Should be nice once we get moving, get the air moving around us, and it'll feel really good. So we're about ready to hit the trail.
Today's ride will take us from our campsite at Cumberland Valley Hiker-Biker Campground, past the midpoint of the C&O Canal, through the big Slackwater section, past the Antietam Creek Aqueduct, and will end at the town of Harper's Ferry, West Virginia.
If it looks like I'm walking, I am, because I'm walking back to get a picture at the midpoint here. This is the midpoint of the C&O. So not the midpoint of our ride, but the midpoint of the C&O. It says midpoint.
Just started out the morning, Friday. I don't know what day it is, but we just passed the midpoint of the C&O Canal. We're well over the midpoint of our whole trip, having already done the gap, but we just hit the midpoint, 92.5 of the C&O. Today we're doing about 32 miles and gonna camp just outside of, a couple miles outside of Harper's Ferry. Then we'll ride in tomorrow morning. We've got a bed and breakfast for a couple days, and we're just gonna do all the historic sites and enjoy Harper's Ferry before we head on. We will only have a couple more days on the C&O. Yeah, anyway, it's been a good trip. We've had great weather. Been warm and kind of warm at night, but not hot like it can get, and not too buggy, just a little bit, not too bad. Still the green tunnel. We do have the overgrown canal on the left and the Potomac on the right, but it is a lot of green tunnel. I'm glad we're doing it. It's fun. I love the historic sites. That really makes the trail. But it's probably not a trail I would do again, just because there's so much green tunnel. So this is McMahon Mill. It's had several names over the years. At one point, I think early on, it ground flour. It was used to grind flour. But then in the early 19th century, they put a steel wheel on it, and they used it for producing electricity.
This must be where they took the canal out into the river. This is Lock 42. 42 and 41 are talked about together. Just downriver from here, the canal actually dumped out into the Potomac River, and the boats moved through the river through a section of the Potomac called Big Slackwater, because there are cliff faces here, and the engineers who built the canal preferred to bring the boats out into the Potomac for 3 miles rather than trying to build a canal into the rock face, which makes a lot of sense. And so for 3 miles the boats were in the Potomac, and then downstream from that they're taken back into the canal.
So this towpath along the Potomac River goes for 3 miles, and you can see how they've had to build it up all along the way.
We're going to be going along a section of the path that has been rebuilt. I think it's said in 1996 there was a big flood that took out the whole towpath through here, and it was out for 15 years. So people who were riding the trail then had to go make a big detour, and in 2010 or 11 they rebuilt this, and so now we're going to have a kind of a concrete path right along the cliff in the river to ride along, so it should be fun. But I'm glad they got that rebuilt so we can continue on the towpath instead of having to make a big detour on country roads. So just back there was what was labeled the inlet weir. I think that's where the boats would come back into the canal. Inlet Lock 4. This is the actual lock where the boats would come back into the canal from the river, or exit the canal into the river if they were northbound. And the Park Service has sealed it off to protect the lock from erosion, they say. But anyway, it's not used anymore, so obviously they sealed it off with tons of dirt and concrete. But then this is the continuation of the canal.
This is Dam 4 on the Potomac River. The dam was built between 1832 and 1835. Its original purpose was to create the big Slackwater section that we have just finished riding through. The building across the river is a hydroelectric power plant that's still in operation. Construction on the plant began in 1906, and it entered service in 1909 for the Martinsburg Electric Company. Dam number 4 is believed to be the last commercially operated rope-driven hydroelectric plant in the United States. Instead of modern gearboxes, the turbines drive the generators through large rope drives made from African sisal rope. The generator shafts also use guaiacum wood bearings and extremely dense self-lubricating tropical hardwood. These are engineering features that have disappeared from almost every other operating hydroelectric plant.
This building above us was used to control water through the canal during times of flood, I think. It said they lowered wooden blocks down through those grooves right there to keep the floodwaters from rushing down into the canal, I guess. And here we're seeing, in the rock wall, we're seeing the grooves made by tow ropes as the mules pulled the boats through the canal here. Got a mama deer and her fawn. The fawn doesn't look like he's more than just a few days old. This is the Antietam Creek Aqueduct. This is Antietam Creek. It flows down from the site of the horrible Civil War battlefield. It was the largest loss of life in the entire Civil War, a single day. They say the Antietam ran red with blood on that day. I think it was September 17th, 1862. Horrible. So peaceful now. This isn't the site of the battle. The battlefield is, I guess, up creek. This is just where the creek flows out into the Potomac.
We just arrived at our campsite for the night, Huckleberry Hill hiker-biker site, and we're the only ones here so far, so we're trying to decide where we want to pitch our tent. Over that way we have a picnic table. Over here we'd have a little more privacy. I think it's going to be here. Yeah, and then we have a nice view out onto the Potomac.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
What do you think?
We're holed up in the tent because we're expecting a thunderstorm, and it's just started to come in. The wind is blowing, and the thunder's been thundering, and a little bit of rain so far. So it's supposed to be over by 7 or so. It's about 5:30 now, so we were about to try to make dinner, but we decided we better just get into the tent and wait for the thunderstorm to go by. So that's what we're doing. So this thunderstorm was a big nothing burger.
Well,
Clapped a few times, a few drops of rain fell, got a few gusts
but
of
for
wind.
about 5 minutes, it was blowing really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, we were having to keep things from blowing away down into the river.
So anyway, now we're
But
out
it wasn't
cooking
very
dinner.
long.
And we think that may be it for the evening. The sun, our main problem now is the sun is reflecting off the river and shining in our eyes. You can see the view we have out over the Potomac. So life is hard. We have that problem. Well, we had kind of an active night last night. At about midnight, the loudest boat engine in the entire world fired up on the lake, and you could just hear it for miles. It seemed like it just
The river.
on the river, yeah. And I don't know where it went or where it was roaring at that hour in the darkness, but it just went on forever. And then about 3 o'clock we had a real thunderstorm, and lightning and rain. And we had left our tent flaps open some to provide ventilation because it's been pretty hot
And humid.
and humid.
So stuffy.
So we had neglected to close those. So we got a little bit wet inside, but really not too bad.
I neglected to close my side.
Well, I didn't zip mine closed either. But
So I got quite a bit of water in there.
so we woke up our normal time, and we've taken our time getting out, just trying to dry things out. And things still aren't dried out, but we're going into Harper's Ferry today. We'll be staying at a bed and breakfast for a couple nights. Don't know what the opportunities will be there to dry things out, but if not there, then the next night we'll be pitching the tent again, and it should dry out again. So
We got it mostly dry.
all's well that ends well, and we're about ready to hit the
A
road.
little bit more, but mostly dry.
We only have about 2.5 miles to
Coffee.
Harper's Ferry.
Good coffee.
We're approaching Harper's Ferry. Had quite a rainstorm last night, so the trail has some water on it.
So we're coming up on Harper's Ferry. So there's a lot of tourists, visitors walking the C&O Canal. So I think we're coming up to the bridge where we're going to cross, but we're going to have to walk our bikes up stairs.
Okay, we got things put back together. Now we're just rolling across the pedestrian bridge over to Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. When it was famous or infamous for John Brown, it was Harper's Ferry, Virginia. But this is part of the state of Virginia that seceded from Virginia during the Civil War and became a new state in the Union. I guess those counties didn't want to rebel, so they took it into their own hands to So they took it into their own hands to create a new state. Yeah, they're coming down the Shenandoah. That's the Shenandoah now. Harper's Ferry is at the confluence of the Shenandoah River and the Potomac River. So the Potomac is this one that we've been following down ever since Cumberland. And the river continues on down that way as the Potomac. So this, I guess, is the end of the Shenandoah River. Right there. This is looking back along the bridge that we just walked over. There's a tunnel over there for the train. And then looking down the Potomac. This building has actually been moved about 5 times to Chicago and back, and then to another location here in Harper's Ferry, and then finally to this location. It's about 150 feet away from where it was during the John Brown raid. This is what they're referring to as John Brown's fort. This is where he and his men made their stand, I guess you could say.
That obelisk is the actual spot of where the fire engine building, now known as John Brown's Fort, was located at the time John Brown commandeered it. So and this is where it's sitting right now. It was October 16 to 18, 1859. John Brown and 18 men captured and held, they're calling it an armory here, for 36 hours.
This is what they call Jefferson Rock, named for Thomas Jefferson.